Early projections for the cost of living adjustment for Social Security recipients. Early projections coming in much lower than the past couple of years. What's that update? What's it all mean? I've got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. All right, so every single year, there's a cost of living adjustment applied to Social Security. Those of you that are drawing Social Security or those of you that are approaching it, you're aware that this cost of living adjustment is applied each and every year, starting back to 1975. Prior to that, it was basically congressional ruling that said, here are the changes. And some of you, I've done videos about this before, some of you say, no, there's not a cost of living adjustment every single year. Some years it's zero, okay, if there is no, if inflation doesn't justify it. But there is a calculation done every single year to make this cost of living adjustment. For all of its faults that Social Security has, and I mean, one enormous, glaring one is that we're currently on a path towards insolvency. So we've got to get this thing figured out within the next 10 years or so. But for all of its faults, it provides this cost of living adjustment such that Social Security recipients, their income keeps up with inflation per se. And even if it's not exact inflation, I'm going to explain the calculation here in just a second, the fact that it does increase and tries to keep pace with inflation makes it unique. Social Security, in fact, as a source of retirement income, slays all three of the retirement income dragons. Number one, keeping up with inflation. Number two, lasting as long as you need it to for your entire life. And then number three, it doesn't change with market volatility. Social Security is one of the only sources of income, likely your only source of income, that actually slays all three of those retirement income dragons. Most of them, at best, will slay two of those. So Social Security, unique in its own right. So this cost of living adjustment, it doesn't get announced until the fourth quarter, but some early projections are in about what Social Security recipients will actually receive in their COLA here later this year. Take a look first here at the history of the cost of living adjustment, specifically this past year, right? An enormous increase coming in late 2022 for 2023, and that is an 8.7% increase. That's the largest increase that we've seen in 40 years because inflation, we hadn't seen this level of inflation in 40 years. But the year before that, just under 6%. Prior to that, it was very, very muted, just like inflation, right? We had a 2015, there was no cost of living adjustment. It was zero. Same thing in 2009, 2010. After or in the aftermath of the great financial crisis and how prices plummeted and the economy plummeted, there was no inflation adjustment on Social Security for those couple of years. But throughout the history of since 1975, on average between 3 and 4%, but obviously some significantly higher years and some significantly lower years. If you look at this, one thing that I would want to point out is inflation occurs and then there's a Social Security cost of living adjustment, okay? So if you're on Social Security, or what a lot of folks call a fixed income, if you're on Social Security, you have to grapple with and deal with higher prices for a year or so before you see an increase. And so in that way, the cost of living adjustment is always delayed. And you might say, well, that's not rocket science. I know, but it makes it very, very challenging. You might look and say, wow, an 8.7% increase, that's fantastic. I know, but you had to go through all of 2022 where prices were actually going up, 9-10% on just a 6% increase. And then you got your 9%, almost 9% increase going into 2023. So be aware of that. It's always lagging a little bit, that adjustment that you get. Okay, so I said earlier it's based on inflation. Well, if it was just based on inflation and everyone could agree on what that number is, then it'd be pretty easy to calculate. But of course it's not. And there's so much politics that go into even the calculation of the CPI. So it's hard to really get there from here. From the Social Security website, they actually tell you how they calculate it. the cost of living adjustment for Social Security is, number one, based off of the CPI-W. That's urban wages, so it excludes a couple things, and so it's a little bit more streamed down. They believe that's a better representation. That's the first thing you need to know. Second thing you need to know is it's based on just the third quarter. The third quarter of this of the previous year compared to the third quarter of the year prior to that. That determines what the cost of living calculation will be. That's done in the fourth quarter, and that's communicated out and will take place in January of the next year. So it's the average of the third quarter compared to that average of the third quarter the previous year. All right, so if it's based on the third quarter, then we're just guessing. Well, yes, we absolutely are, but this author came out and said, hey, based on the way we're forecasting inflation and what we're sort of seeing, here's the way too early prediction of what the cost of living adjustment will be here in 2023 that would apply to Social Security starting January of 2024. They're estimating 3.1%, a 3.1% increase in your Social Security for next year in 2024. Now, they're saying that's in line with what the Social Security trustees have said. It's likely to be between 3 and 4%. So much, much lower than last year, which was 8.7, and even lower than 2 years ago, which was nearly 6%. So what are the takeaways from this? Well, number one, if you're on Social Security and if you're in retirement, I know you're going to think this is, this you had to deal with this when you were younger, but make sure you're managing your expenses. But budget if you need to, but make sure that you're managing your expenses. A 3 to 4% increase likely is going to be close to what you could see in Medicare increases as well. And so we hear that all the time where people say, well, nice that I got a cost of living adjustment on my Social Security. All of that had to go to health insurance. And if the cost of living adjustment is down into the 3% range, then that very well might be the case again. So make sure that you're budgeting, number one. Number two, make sure that you're looking at your other income sources. I mentioned that you've got 3 sort of retirement income dragons to slay, and 1 is it will keep up with inflation, 2, it will last as long as you do, and 3, it doesn't change with market volatility. Well, we've had a lot of market volatility over the past couple of years, and this year, even though we're positive at the time that I'm recording this, there's been some volatility nonetheless. And so check into your other income sources. That's the second thing I'd tell you to do. And then 3, I would tell you work with your certified financial planner, put these inputs into your 5-factor retirement plan and make sure that you're on track. Make sure that if you're in retirement drawing Social Security, that you're drawing a sustainable amount out. You're not drawing out too much. That you're also being aware of tax planning strategies and other planning strategies so that you're making the most of your overall financial situation. So work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K. WiseMoneyShow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.